the first thing we should get to tonight is how ESPN and how we've been talking about them has been fucking annihilating the NHL and their contract. ESPN last week missed 3 goals in the opening 3 minutes of Game 6 between the Golden Knights and the Oilers, where Vegas would win 5-2 and move on to the next round. ESPN had 2 games scheduled that day, the St. Louis Cardinals versus the Boston Red Sox and the Oilers versus the Golden Knights. The Cardinals were destroying the Sox 9-1, but instead of moving on to the Stanley Cup playoff do-or-die game, they decided to finish up that baseball game, which is infuriating just to think about. Hockey fans have taken to social media to show their anger at ESPN, who has clearly shown zero interest in caring about the NHL and the 7-year deal they made with the organization with them last year. Chairman of ESPN, James Pitaro, am I saying that right? James Pitaro, yeah, needs to be finally put on the spot and asked why he and ESPN simply refused to cover NHL content like they said they would and agreed to for the 7 years. I'm with you on that. Not me, but you have talked about it several times on this podcast, and that was bullshit right there last week. It is like the beginning of like the baseball season too. And there's like 200 games. That baseball game could not matter any fucking less. And any less at all. And here we go, do or die playoff game that the fans want to see. And you're just like, nah, we'll finish off this 9-1 fucking blowout.
Yeah, so I heard the guys on Chicklets say that part of this issue stemmed from the fact that an issue like this happened in the years past when ESPN had 2 major league sports to cover at the same time. Basically, they moved one of them to ESPN2, which is a perfectly fine option, but it's not what their contract says that they have agreed to. So by doing that, they got sued for like millions and millions of dollars and like lost, obviously. So they kind of ran into the same situation. They said, hey, this is what our contract says we're supposed to do, so that's what we have to stick to. Mm-hmm. It's terrible. It's bad for the game. They're not working on growing the game at all. Nope. Anytime you turn on ESPN, it's Skip Bayless, it's Stephen A. Smith arguing about the NBA, arguing about NFL. It's the off season for the NFL, and they get more coverage than the goddamn regular season of the NHL got. Mm-hmm. I had, my doubts at the beginning of the season, but I went in optimistically saying, I really hope ESPN gives them a true chance. The broadcast team they put together I thought was really good. They had a lot of good guys on the panel when we went over that at the beginning of the season, but just the fact that at the end of the day, they're not even willing to put it on the channel during the most important time of the year. Like, if the roles are reversed next season when the MLB is in the playoffs and there's a regular season NHL game, like, their main reason for the MLB being on was because they have Sunday Night Baseball as like a thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, here's our Sunday Night Baseball matchup. It's the most important thing in the MLB right now, right? Mm-hmm. Come hockey season, they have Wednesday Night Rivalry Night is what they used to do on NBC Sports. So let's say they have that, and there's playoff baseball on a Wednesday night and a regular season NHL game for Wednesday Night Rivalry. Mm-hmm. Guess what's going to be on the TV? I can probably promise you it's not going to be the regular season NHL game.
Yeah, no, you're right.
It's nuts.
Mm-hmm. Then what? I don't understand why they would take on such a contract like this, and then like you go back and see like the bullshit like comments they have like, oh, we're so glad to be with the NHL. We're glad to be putting out their content along with us and grow the game, and you're just not fucking doing it. I gotta watch my language, by the way.
I do think that at the end of the day, money talks and bullshit walks. Like the MLB is paying a much higher dollar to ESPN to cover them because, like you said, there are 200 games to cover, so it's going to cost more money to get them on ESPN's airtime. Yeah. So at the end of the day, you got to take care of the guy who's paying the bills more so than the other guy. Yeah. And I think obviously ESPN just kind of did this as a money grab. Like the NHL is definitely willing to shell out to be on the sports, whatever the fuck ESPN stands for now, Entertainment Sports Something Network. Something. But I mean, they're just taking the money and running with it, I think, honestly. Like I think they're doing a shit job. I think TNT has just blown them out of the water with what they've done this season.
100%. And not even to mention, their website is just awful. If you want like hockey news, hockey stats, hockey anything, do not go to ESPN. ESPN, like, they hardly ever, like, update anything on there. Like, they still have, like, I remember when we were doing the breakdowns of, like, the, what were we doing? The trade deadline or something like that. And I had to look up who was injured, what could happen. And I found ESPN, they had, like, an easier little website, part of their website with, like, all the injury reports. And then I found another website, I think it was CBS, who had everything up to date, and I was realizing how out of date the ESPN was. I'm like, oh my god, dude, can you just? You guys don't care at all. Like it's pathetic at this point. The NHL really, really needs to sit down with these guys and be like, hey, listen, like if you're not gonna do it, we're gonna pull out of this and go somewhere else, you know? Because the game is growing, and they need to find a partner that's willing to grow with them, not push them under the ground, you know?